Hello and welcome to Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. I am your host, Devlin, and I'm here with another fun-filled episode coming your way. And I'm excited because I have got my first co-host of the new year here, and he's a man I've wanted him for a long time. I've wanted him on the show. I actually have interviewed somebody who works with Jennifer. You may remember that show. And I said, after the show, I said, do you think Bill would come on? Do you think Jennifer said, why wouldn't he come on, you know? So I'm glad he's here. He's a very distinguished man, and we're going to try to get rid of that by the end of this hour, because I know he's also very funny and just a really interesting guy. In fact, when we were getting ready for this show, just talking to him a little bit about what we could talk about, I was learning so much about him. And I realized, as much as I thought I know about him, I don't know as much, and I'm looking forward to, let's not waste any more time, because I know he's desperate to talk. Mr. Bill Dunphy is here with me.
Hello, Devlin. It's my pleasure. Actually, it is an honor to be the New Year's baby of your show.
Are you happy? Now, you listen to the show.
Yes, I do.
That's why I'm very excited, too. You actually helped change the show a little bit, because you were the person who asked for downloadable versions.
Oh, yes.
And as soon as you said that, I was on the phone to Corda. So now she can see the man who was responsible for giving her more work, but no, she loved it. Yeah, you asked for downloadable because you listen to podcasts in your car, I guess.
That's right.
And it's hard to watch YouTube while you're driving in traffic, I'm sure.
Or while walking the dog or washing the dishes. Those are my prime podcast hours.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Where do you listen to mine the most? Am I a car person? Am I a dog walker?
Car, because, well, until recently I had a 1-hour commute each way. So one of your shows just, that filled the ride.
So it was perfect, yeah. Because I've had some people say that they've tried to listen to me while they do work, but they feel they're neglecting me when I'm starting to cry, and they can't listen to me. They go, like, I can't do this. I gotta listen to this man. So I feel good about that.
Just so you know, when you do start to cry, I just keep driving.
Do you?
I just keep driving.
That's good. There's nothing you can do about it.
Safety first.
Oh, I told this before, but one of the things I love is that, well, I don't love it. I actually feel guilty as hell. Is I do those shows and I get emotional, and I don't say, this will be an emotional show. They just happen. But what happens is people listen to it on the Thursday, and then they'll be right, are you okay? And I go, actually, I recorded that last week. I'm like doing the jig this morning, and I feel like so little because people think I'm on death's door on the ledge already.
So we should call you on like a Monday
and
anticipating that this is going to be a bad one, and then we can be useful.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you've heard a couple of good ones, or you see my statuses change on Facebook, there's a blue one coming up. But anyhow, enough about me. Because you're here, and a lot of people don't know you, but a lot of people do. Because you're kind of a celebrity, are you not?
I wouldn't call myself a celebrity.
No, but you're a reporter.
So having a byline, and the times I've had columns, the paper has 100,000 subscribers.
And we were talking about the Hamilton Spectator,
of course.
No, that's good. That's just in case people didn't know. Now they might, because you use your real name, don't you?
Indeed, I do.
So if people read the Spectator and say Bill Dunphy, they'll say, that guy!
I know, but unfortunately, I retired December 31st.
So they can't read you anymore.
Well, there will be, I hope, one more project that I've been working on. That everyone in this city will read, but
that's cool.
It'll take a while.
Oh, it's one that you're working on, like a lengthy one.
Lengthy
investigative reporting. Are you going under the crime scene?
That's what I've been doing most of my time.
The underbelly of Hamilton.
I live in the underbelly of Hamilton.
I thought you lived in Toronto.
No, it's true. I do. I live in Toronto. Work.
It's easier to get into the underbelly when you live in Toronto, though.
But it's funny, when I started in Hamilton 18 years and 184 days ago, I didn't know Hamilton terribly well. And so I got to know it through the reporting. You get sent to this scene to interview that person, attend this event. But I realized after a while, I brought my wife and kids in. We went to the Children's Museum. I wanted to show them that. Mm-hmm. And as I'm driving through and pointing things out to them, I realized all of the places in Hamilton I know are places where bad things have happened. So it's, oh yeah, that's the apartment building. It took me an hour to get in there, but finally I got up to the 12th floor and talked to someone who saw the man with the axe. I mean,
because you're Hamilton.
Because I'm a crime reporter primarily.
Wow.
So that my landmarks are all tragedies for other people, unfortunately.
Now, you were telling me you were with the Toronto Sun originally.
Yeah.
And now when you came to Hamilton, be honest, were you like, oh, Hamilton? Or like, what was your attitude? Or was it more positive? Like, well...
Well, when I got fired from the Sun in 96, I immediately reached out to the Globe and the Star, the other papers in town at that time, to try to see if there might be opportunities or openings. Didn't have any luck there. So I started looking further afield, and I went and bought a week's worth of the Spectator from a newsagent in Toronto, and I read it, and I looked at the paper, and I thought, I do not want to work for this paper.
Yeah.
It looked to me old and tired, and so I didn't, and I went and did other things. I began building freelance clients, and while still reaching out to people. Anyway, someone said, hey, you should check the Spectator. I said, no, I already looked at it. And the guy said to me, no, this new editor-in-chief's been in there now 4 months, and he's really making changes. So I did the same thing. I collected a week's worth, looked at them, and it was a different paper, had a lot of energy, and it looked really exciting. So that's when I came out, and I'm very glad I did.
That's good.
Very glad I did.
Yeah, because I always hear people from Toronto, and, they're always like, oh, Hamilton and stuff. So I thought when you come from, like, the Toronto Sun, now it's, it's good to hear that. That's why I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, like, God, I hated Hamilton, but I know that you do have a love for it now.
I do.
Appreciation
I do.
for it in a
the
big
city's
way.
The city's got, the city has a real heart. It has a sense of itself that isn't stuck up, that isn't holier than thou or mightier than thou. It's people who are proud of things that their friends and neighbors do and make happen in the city. And plus, I don't have to tell anyone who's in this town, but the city has really been changing a lot in the last decade.
Yeah, I agree.
And changing for the better.
When I was younger, I used to hate that we always tried to be like Toronto, and I always thought we should embrace that we aren't Toronto and that we're our own thing. Yeah. And I think that's been happening in the last little while.
It is. I mean, I've had friends from Toronto, come out for art crawl, and for some of them, it's the first time they've been out in years and years, and they're just blown away.
Yeah, great
and it's
introduction.
Like, you don't have that in Toronto. I mean, plus, it's more than those obvious things like art crawl. I see young people in their 20s who are saying to themselves, I don't want to go and deal with Toronto. There's so much for me here.
Yeah.
This is where I've got a community, and I can make it richer and better by staying here. And there's a lot of that in the city.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Now, what was you going to school? Like, what were you like when you were a kid?
Oh,
Go back a bit.
So if we go all the way back to grade school, so I was always a good student in some ways. Got good marks and always a little bit late with the work, maybe. When I look at my report cards from those eras, it's always things like, Hill needs to listen rather than talk more. And I do remember a great note from my grade 6 teacher home to my mother saying, does Bill have a physical disability that you need to tell me about? His handwriting is so bad. And
he should be a doctor.
No, my mother just said, no, that's the way he writes. There's nothing wrong with him.
Well, that's
so, I was never the kind that got into big trouble, but I was the kind who got into trouble for joking, for being too loud. So I got to know all the bad kids because I would end up getting detentions for goofing off and I'd be sitting in detention with that future murderer.
Well, right. That explains how you got into the crime. Yeah.
Well, actually, that's actually true. That I found from a pretty young age that Bad guys, for some reason, I can make connections with.
Interesting quality. Yes.
It is. It's. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's. They feel they can. I make them feel that they can trust me. That even though I'm obviously a goody, I honestly I don't know what it is.
No,
but it's been very useful.
That's good. Now, was journalism always what you wanted to get into?
Journalism was a way to get paid to write.
Okay. So you always just knew you wanted to be a writer? There was no other career you were thinking about?
So there's a small story attached to that. I was 14 years old, and I found a cache of my grandfather's letters to my mother.
Okay.
My grandfather died 2 months before I was born, so I never knew him. And during the 30s and 40s and 50s, he had to leave his family in upstate New York to seek work, and he ended up in New York City. So he was a secretary for the American Irish Historical Society on there, I think, Fifth Avenue. And he had rooms in the attic, basically.
Okay.
So he was separated from his family by about 400 miles, and this is before Skype. So he wrote letters, and he wrote lots of letters to his kids. And he's got this Irish storytelling genius and his master of the language. So he would be writing these letters. I remember one series of 6 letters he wrote home describing the murder of his landlady and how he had killed her because she always, when she would clean the floors, she would put newspapers on it so that you wouldn't dirty them up again. And the crunkling of the newspapers drove him insane, and he killed her with a frying pan.
Wow.
And it was this 6-episode story that ended with him being hung and dead. And, I mean, it was just the fun. Like, he would take these wild flights of fancy and then mix it in with real news and commenting on news and giving direction to his children from far away.
That sounds really interesting and powerful.
They were. And it just, to me, I opened them up and read them, the first couple, by the attic light where I found them. And it was, wow, someone in my family is this amazing writer.
Yeah.
I want to do that. And because it's in my family, it probably means I can. So, I mean, that really turned my thoughts and directions into that. And then it was a matter of practicing and learning how to do it, and then looking for some way to get paid to do that.
Now, you went into crime. Did you get put into that, or is that an area you were just interested in that you wanted to explore?
So that I started out. I didn't go to journalism school because when I consulted with people back then, anyway, they told me you don't need journalism school to learn journalism.
Okay.
Go and get a real education. So I got some version of that. And then I went into community newspapers, and I worked on a community newspaper for 9 years. Editing it eventually. And then the Toronto Sun called because of a cooking column I'd written in desperation when the cooking column didn't show up and we had 2 hours before press. Really? Yes.
And that's how...
And someone in our readership sent the executive editor a clipping of it, and he called me up and said, "Do you want to come out and talk?" And he ended up offering me a job as a columnist.
Those are always the best when you don't...
Oh my God, are they the best? That is like, it was life-changing.
Were you crime in Toronto too? Or were
you at the Sun, I actually... So I started as a columnist, a daily columnist. So it's a particular kind of job where they were trying to replace Paul Rimstead, who was one of their marquee columnists, and had died. So it was every single day, it was just going out and finding a story. I wasn't on a political beat, a crime beat. It was just
finding something.
Get out and get a story from the city every day, which was an amazing, amazing time. After that, I just began doing what they call general assignment. But out of that, I started seeing stories and then delivering them stories. I specialized in, white supremacists and race relations. In the 90s, the Heritage Front was this white supremacist group that the biggest thing in Canada since the 30s in terms of
Now, how did they decide that you look like a guy that we could use for this? Or...
No, they didn't. I did.
Okay, you did. You just felt that it was an interesting...
I saw a recruitment poster on a telephone pole, and I said, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is this doing in my city? Right? And so I began investigating it. And then when I had it to the point where it was a story, I went to my editor and I said, look, here's a story. And then it's just a matter of you developing those stories, and that became one focus. Bikers was another one.
Wow.
Just because in that case, it was the connection from white supremacists to bikers. So I learned about that world and started investigating that. So it's that kind of way. I mean,
were you just fascinated on the topic? Because I know, like, people are shocked when I tell them I watch Sons of Anarchy and stuff like that. And one of the reasons is because I love to see the dynamic of people in situations I don't relate to.
Yes.
Do you know what? I'm not a biker. I'm not. But even like white supremacists, that world intrigues me in a lot of ways. You know, it sounds horrible.
No.
My German side coming out. No, but I just find it intriguing because I love to see the human side behind how that's the way they were raised and got into that, and you know, stuff like that. I find that fascinating. Just wondered if that was for you too,
That is a big piece of it. And I did a lot of work in cults. That was one of the other areas I specialized in. And on the cult side, that was very true, that I wanted to understand how people could get so invested and involved in a sometimes very bizarre belief system.
Yeah.
And eventually I understood that cults are actually religion, and all religions are like that. And the cults are ones...
It's hard to say, but yeah, you're
don't
right.
have the edges rounded off them yet by time. That's the way it felt. The other thing I love finding things out that people don't want me to know.
That's a great way,
right,
to be a reporter.
To me, there's a purely personal thrill of being able to say, you wanted to hide that, and I got it. And it's a competitive thing.
This is a strange question, but you found out about bikers, white supremacists, cults, people.
Yes.
Did you ever, talk to them and actually become friends, and find, the human side of them?
Absolutely.
That sounds horrible. Find the human side. Everybody's got that side, but,
But it's true.
You almost forget for a bit that, they're involved in all this stuff, and you just see them for who they are.
Well, on a professional level, you don't forget.
You can't, but...
and sometimes it's very important that you don't
right.
for a lot of reasons. But no, the way you get good at this, and this is true of virtually any reporting, is building up a rapport with that person so that they trust you enough to reveal things, to tell you things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spend a lot of time with these people.
And you could, walk away and say, if I wasn't working with them, I could have a drink with them or get to know them. And
I probably wouldn't.
No.
But I understand. No, but I do understand, and I do see them as humans. And because a lot of our images of people are shorthand, right?
We just judge them immediately,
right.
Just for what, they're in a cult. Oh, God, even anything like that, even the smaller things nowadays. But that's good.
Yeah.
Now, we are going to talk more about your reporting. I want to do a segment on that.
So
we'll talk about Hamilton and crime.
Sure.
So, we've got to wrap up this segment, but you've just recently retired. Are you looking forward to retirement?
I've retired from a full-time job.
Okay.
From the salary and the Spectator. I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to keep writing, I hope,
freelance?
Until I die. Freelance and private projects, and comedy writing. That's something I've been investing in my time and energies, and I want to do more of it.
Are you still going to be working with Jennifer on the podcast idea?
Yes, the Dr. Barenhoff.
That's it?
The Dr. Barenhoff series. Yes, indeed we are. We've just begun plotting out our own schedules for the next few months.
Oh, nice.
And we're going to be returning to writing the next season. And
so I was lucky enough to read some of the first scripts, and I really enjoyed it. And I think I'd love to hear the finished episode.
So would I.
I'm excited. I know you are. Any plans on maybe writing a book on your experiences or anything, or is just that not your?
I honestly don't know if my own life or career is necessarily that interesting or worth a book. I mean, I think I'm a fascinating guy, but unfortunately, I'm a realist. But there are fiction things that I have projects that I have begun at different times, and one or two of those I'm going to spend some time with, and who knows?
Nice. Well, writers should keep writing.
Exactly.
And that's good that you're not just retiring and giving up. Because I've heard a rumor the average of a person collects, unemployment, like your retirement checks is like only 17 months. So you better,
Great.
I told this to a friend who retired. I go, do you really want to retire? Because if you don't have anything to do...
I've got 17 months. Is that what you're telling me?
I really got to learn a better way to tell people that. But it shocked me, because that's not even 2 years, right? That's I'm doing the math here. But what I'm trying to say is you got to stay busy. Idle hands.
Well, you've got to... I mean... I don't know. I'm not the kind of person that can't do things.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about that part at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Live a long time.
I should say, I should apologize to your listeners for the quality of my voice. This is not actually my normal register. It's because we had our going away party last night.
Oh, yes.
And I wasn't buying the drinks. They all were. Yes. So it's affected my vocal cords.
And you said you're not a big drinker, so this was the first time you let your hair down?
Well, no. I can drink. I've been known to drink.
Is this the Irish?
Do you have,
or is that a stereotype? Are we not allowed to say that?
No, you're allowed to.
On my show, I'm allowed to say anything.
So before I answer this question, I want to know, do you have a fact-checking department?
No.
Okay, good then. No, I hardly ever drink.
I'll check Wikipedia now and again, but I don't think you'd be on there yet.
Last night was the first time I've had more than 2 drinks at a sitting in Hamilton.
Yeah,
because I have to drive back to Toronto. So I stayed here overnight, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Any pictures going to surface on...
I hope to God not. I have to do another social media sweep.
There you go. But I noticed you're going to do this like maybe on a monthly basis, so you must have had a good time.
Yeah, well, that's the media community, and because I've been around enough, there's enough that know me who came out last night, and we were saying, this is so much fun, we should do this on a regular basis.
Nice.
So we're going to try and do that.
Excellent. Well, we're going to wrap it up there, and then when we come back, we'll take a break, and we're going to talk some comedy, because I met Bill through Improv, as most of my guests are. But I very seldom actually talk to them about Improv. We're going to talk comedy, Improv, all that.
Great.
Right after this.
Thank you.
We are back, and if you're just joining us, I don't know why you're listening to us from the middle, but hey, maybe you didn't want to meet Bill Dunphy, and you just, comedy, that's okay. I don't know. I just wonder about things like that. Anyhow, Bill is somebody I met through Improv, Staircase. As I said, about 70-80% of the guests I have, that's how I meet them. So if you've wondered about meeting people through Improv, I recommend it. But we were talking, and you actually have been doing Improv a lot longer than just at the Staircase.
Yeah, the Staircase was my return to Improv. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
That's a good place to be.
I began Improv back in the early 80s with the birth of theater sports in Toronto. And I did that for a good 5-6 years, very, very intensely, many nights a week.
Yeah.
Weekly shows, classes. I taught classes, performed in clubs around town. It was an amazing period for comedy at that time. That was when the kids in the hall were born out of that group in theater sports.
Did you actually perform with them?
Not with them as the kids. They were but Bruce McCullough and myself and a man with the unfortunate name of Paul Bernardo.
There's an improv team.
Yes. We had an improv team, and
are you serious?
Yeah, and we did shows. We competed in theater sports, and we did a number of shows at bars and little clubs in Toronto at the time.
This wasn't the real Paul Bernardo.
No, it was not the real Paul Bernardo. Jeez. This was an accountant. Paul
Normally,
Bernardo.
when I hear the name Bruce McCullough, I'd ask you questions about him. But when you're telling me, wait, Paul Bernardo did improv before? Okay. I think I know that there was a famous Paul Bernardo before. Somebody told me a story about an improviser named Paul Bernardo.
Yeah. So
did he have to change his name?
He did.
Did he?
He
Yeah.
actually changed his name. I don't know if he did it legally, but he began referring to himself as, I think it was Paul Anthony, his middle name.
Yeah.
And he used that. I presume he's back to his real name, but maybe not. I mean, it's an awful thing to have yourself associated with that.
It's too bad because it's actually like Bernardo is such a good classic name, and then to say, fuck. Like I can just imagine when you read the newspaper the next day and you're like,
yeah, it's like everybody named Trump must feel that now.
I'm sure Cosby is in a great name.
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah,
so I did
that's
that.
awesome that you got started.
I did that for years. It was a passion. Some great. Anyway, I had met fabulous people. We did some great comedy.
Was Bruce McCullough, not to hinge on this, but I'm a big fan of his. Did you know he was going to go on to bigger and better things? Or sometimes you don't see it, but yeah.
So Bruce came to Theater Sports as a group called The Audience was there, and they'd come from Calgary, if I remember, or he joined them right after they came. I'm sorry, my memory's a little fuzzy. And they were a powerhouse, and that was Mark McKinney and Bruce McCullough and Frank Van Keeken. Frank Van Keeken's gone on to do professionally. He's made a career out of comedy and writing. And of course, Mark McKinney and Bruce McCullough, also have done an entire career out of that.
How did you find improv?
How did I? The very first time it was my older brother and my best friend had read a little article about it and said, "Hey, let's go do that," and I tagged along. They dropped out after a short while. My brother turned out to have stage fright.
That's hard to do when you're doing improv, especially improv.
Well, but he's a masterful storyteller.
Yeah.
And he just, something about going on stage he just couldn't do. And I went on stage and it's like, wow, this is great.
I know, it's a rush. I think you can really tell when it's for you.
Yeah.
Because when you say that at the beginning, you ate it, slept it, you were doing shows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's all you think about. Like, when's the next time I'm going to improv,
But I hit a point in 1988 where I was beginning to get serious about a particular woman who became my wife, and where I got that offer of a job at The Sun.
Yeah.
And that's going from a community paper to a daily paper. And I decided I had to make some choices, and so I said, "Comedy, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you aside." And then had a family, got most of them out the door, more or less. Okay, now back to comedy.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 daughters, and so does my wife. It works best like that.
Now, is your wife like very funny, like a comedian type? Like, does she like comedy or
no? She doesn't. She doesn't like improv. She doesn't
I giggle because this
comedy.
happens more often than not. Wayne Scott, a friend of ours, he always says, does your wife? I asked him, does your wife come to the shows? No. And if she does, I'm the least funny thing in it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's weird that they come into each other. Like Mike comes out to my shows, and he's kind of quiet, but he does have his funny side that I see. But I'm amazed at how many people are drawn to people that are that don't have that, especially when you do that. But that's fine.
The affairs of the heart are unknowable.
Yeah. So how about your kids? Do they?
3 daughters. They're all in their early 20s. None of them do improv or
do they do any
comedy.
kind of artistic thing? Or?
Oh, yes-ish. So
we're not slapping non-artistic people here. I just am interested I see.
So so my oldest went into university as an English lit major, and she's now working at the Ontario Science Centre.
Nice.
Nothing to do with literature, which is her passion and love. She's dealing with science, and she didn't take any science courses, but she loves teaching, and she's involved in their education and camping program, summer camps and so on. The middle one is science. She's doing her master's in evolutionary biology.
Oh, wow.
And she was the most artistic. Like, these kids are, sorry kids, but they're kind of bifurcated in strange ways. So as a kid, she was the one who was just churning out drawings and sculptures and art, and then she went into science. But my youngest daughter is, I think, art is a real part of her life. She's training in vocal music.
Oh, very nice.
And getting serious training in vocal music out at Dalhousie. She's wrapping that up soon.
Very nice. Now, did you miss it? Or
Yes.
did you, when you were going through this part, did you ever have inklings of, I wonder if I should get back into it, or...
So it was always time was the issue.
Yeah.
And it always felt like it would be stealing it from my family.
Yeah.
And so that part, yes, I regretted it in that sense, but I didn't actually regret it because these were good things.
Yeah.
But I did miss it. I did miss it a lot. It improved my storytelling amazingly as a writer. When you're doing improv, if your story isn't working, you know it right away. Like, it's really quick. You've taken a wrong turn. And if you can't fix it, you got to end it.
Yeah.
And when you do a lot of improv, you really see the beginnings, the middles, and the ends of stories without having to be conscious about it.
Yeah. But you also have to, you're on stage with other people who are seeing possibly different
Sure.
endings.
Well,
and that's what makes it fun, where you have to think, like, oh, where did the giant robot show up? Yeah.
There's no fun in juggling one knife.
No.
You need a knife, an axe, and a chainsaw, and then it's really fun. But it does, I found it, even when I wasn't doing comedy for the very longest time, that the improv informed my storytelling and my understandings of stories.
Once again, I won't promote improv enough around here. It works on so many levels.
So true.
What brought you back? I know you told me the story, but you shared it.
It was a few years back. There's actually two parts. I only told you one. I just ran into an old improviser from the Toronto days. I ran into him in a Fortino's parking lot, and we're catching up, and he said, "So you're doing improv?" And I said, "No, I haven't done it in decades." And he said, "Oh, there's a nice group over at the Staircase, and they've got a comedy jam, an improv jam tonight." I said, "Well, what's an improv jam?" He says, "Oh, anybody can show up and do it, or you don't have to. You can just watch it." And I said, "Oh, well, actually, I'm finishing work just before that, and it's right across the street there from the Spectator, practically. Yeah, I'll try it out." And I did. He didn't show up, of course. Scum. I'm talking about you, Daryl. And I had a blast. And
that heart was thumping again.
Yeah, I was worried, like, do I have any chops left at all? At all? And surprisingly, I remembered enough to not make a total fool of myself.
Was it hard at the beginning when you started coming to, like, the classes? Because it was like a different generation. And now the Staircase has, like, older people as well. Like, we mix it well. But a lot of young, pups in there.
That's
and
true.
It's,
So there's no question that I suck the energy out of their bodies and use it for my own purposes because they are younger and more energetic than me.
They make you feel young.
It's true.
Somebody once told me that the one thing about improv is, you're as young as the people you play with.
That's so true.
That really, I'm sure he said it more eloquently. Mine sounded just like a dirty old man, but sorry. But your energy's there because their energy is there. And you're right.
Yeah.
You feel almost like you play off that.
And there was the other half of so I did that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. And I enjoyed it, and I thought, oh, maybe I should get back into it. And I went to one or two other advanced classes there, and was still kind of thinking, well, it's in another city, and I'm spending so much time away from. But then I got into a car accident that nearly killed me. Driving home from Hamilton, hit some black ice.
Not the night of the jam.
No.
Okay, thank God.
This
I'm thinking
is 3 months later.
This really good thing happens, and then suddenly, no, okay.
Hit black ice, flipped the car 3 times, rolled it 3 times,
God.
and smashed into a concrete abutment right at the QEW 403, 407 interchange there. Came out without a scratch.
Which is amazing.
Car
what you
total.
just described.
Yeah, car completely total. I accepted the paramedics' advice to go to the hospital to be checked out because the car was like, how did you get out of that? And I'm sitting there. I don't have my glasses; they were destroyed in the crash, so I can't see very well. And I'm sitting in the emergency room, and someone comes up to me and says, "Bill." And I turn and look, and I have no idea who this is. And because I'm a reporter, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I interviewed him at some point. And he goes, Bill, you're Bill Dunphy, right? And I said, yes. I'm sorry, I don't recognize you. I don't have my glasses. And he said, it's Daniel Collick. And he's a doctor, an emergency room doctor, and he was working at Joseph Brandt. And he's an improviser as well that I'd met during those few times that I'd done it. And it's hard to describe this. So, I mean, he took care of me. I mean, he took me in, checked me out completely, and I was fine. Yeah. But it also was this sudden realization that there was a community that I just connected with. And it felt really, I mean, partly because of the trauma of that experience, but it felt really good to be connected to the city that I was working in that way, and I've avoided it simply because of the time demands. And I thought, well, you're stupid. You're cutting yourself off from the chance to be part of a great, welcoming, loving community. Yeah. Why don't you do it? So after that, I said, okay, I'm all in.
Nice. I never knew that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how many doctors, and since I did improv, it's just mind-blowing how many engineers I now know. I'm not saying that in a bad way.
No, of course not.
I don't think I knew what an engineer was unless he was driving a train, and then I met them, and it's amazing what you meet. We talked about, do you see a big difference in the scenes? Like, when you're in the 80s, it was hungry and that.
So, yeah.
We talked about that
a bit before.
There's not maybe as much hunger in our situation, but
it's a little. I am seeing actually a bit of a rise of that, and some of that has to do with the age of the people. That if you're in your late teens, early 20s, and you're still choosing your path and figuring out what you're still throwing yourself against the universe to see where it's going to let you in. Improv attracts people who are saying, I want to do that in my life, at that age. The community in Hamilton is much smaller than Toronto.
Yeah.
So you need a certain sort of critical mass of those people who are saying, I am all in. It's one of the most important things in my life to raise it to I think its real potential.
Yeah.
So that I mean, in the 80s in Toronto, it was just a massive scene. It was growing by leaps and bounds. I mean, our weekly shows, we'd have anywhere from 60 to 200 people.
Wow.
And when we do tournaments, we would have 300-400 people. Well, 300 people. For multiple nights running. Yeah.
Which is staggering. Any show you're putting on, you would love to see those numbers.
Oh my God, yes. So it certainly doesn't have that, but again, it has something else. It has this great community, and I am seeing a number of people who are really interested in mounting their own shows, in creating products, and they're doing like you have, looking at podcasting, making their own videos and movies. That there's a lot of that happening in the city. It hasn't coalesced around one place, so
right?
And I think it kind of needs to, because then you get you do get that critical mass. And if everyone is entirely off doing their own thing, you miss out on that collective energy that having a lot of people who are all in on the thing bring.
Well, I loved that when you showed up. I noticed when I came to the Advance. As I said, I came to the Advance, and one day you were there. And I didn't know you in that, and then when I watched you, and then I've gotten the opportunity to play with you and train with you and teach you even a little. No, we haven't done anything else that we can't talk about. But I love that you brought a lot of heart to it, because I felt that you brought a lot of heart. I remember I taught a dramatic improv class, and I always love the reaction I get because a lot of the younger people are like, oh, and then at the end, they thank me. Not all of them, but most thank me because they are shocked that the comedy that can actually come out of a drama thing, because it's more natural, and that we push them into directions that it's almost like, because I think a lot of people in improv come out just to, we need to make people laugh, and you get the real jokers, and you got to realize you got to rein them in a little bit. But you brought a lot of heart, and which was very nice, and I think that's a thing that's missing in a lot of improv now, because it is kind of like pull your pants down, kind of, go for the jugular or the balls or whatever. Shouldn't say balls while you're choking.
No, that's fine. There's no relationship between those two things. But, I mean, people have their different styles, of course.
Certainly.
But I think anyone who's been in improv for a while, when they do try something that has, it may be serious or dramatic, but I think it is more about heart and authenticity. When they do a scene that is resonating with people, which is what authenticity does, they come away going, wow, that thing has a lot of power.
Yeah.
And it's a different power than just comedy. And when you mix comedy into something where you're touching people's heart, and then you break them out into laughter, it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, and I always tell them that, because a lot of young people are like, well, nobody laughed, and I'm like, well, did you, you saw the audience, you had emotion there, you were getting them, like, feeling you, and that is just as powerful as just, making them laugh. Now, I just wanted to ask you one thing. I don't think I've ever asked you this before. You're a big Jimmy Stewart fan, I'm guessing? You do play him on stage a little bit.
Sometimes.
And I don't know if, maybe the young people think it's a brand new character, but, when I'm hearing, Mary, it's beautiful. And I just wondered if you're actually a big fan, or if that's just a character you...
Both are probably true. I mean, I'm not a massive fan that I
don't have
movies
shrines
to him. No, I do have my own invisible rabbit that follows me around. But no, I mean, I admire him, the hell out of him, and love some of the movies he's been in.
Because I love when sometimes you're in a scene and I hear the characters show up, and it's like, oh, Jimmy's here. And I never asked you about that, because I think it's very sweet. Because it automatically gives it a Frank Capra feel. So that,
And who doesn't love Frank Capra?
There you go.
I mean, there you got heart and comedy. Yes.
And it's really fun when the young people start turning it into bathroom humor. And you're stuck with this endearing Frank Capra moment.
That's comedy.
That's the wonderful thing about it.
That's so true.
So we're going to talk a little bit about your reporting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very intrigued by this, and we will take a short break and be back with Bill Dunphy.
Yay! Oh, wait, I'm already here.
And we're back and having a great time here with Bill Dunphy. I love a guest, a co-host. Sorry, you're a co-host.
You need.
I love, as I said, when we talk in between while I'm saving things, and this stuff is just as good.
We don't tell people what we talk about in between.
People must think I'm I just talk interesting all the time. Trust me, if you ran a recorder half the time, I've got the ramblings of a lunatic sometimes, but you probably get that from the show.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I want to talk back to your reporting, because I find it very fascinating, and, Hamilton Spectator, huge, I remember reading it when I was younger and stuff. I don't read it as much now. I kind of avoid the news, I only kind of learn about things when I feel like, oh, okay, I think I have to kind of know a little bit about this. I know it's horrible, but I find a lot of people are kind of trying to hide from it now. But you were right in the middle of it. Did you start immediately in crime at Hamilton Spectator?
Yes, I was actually hired to replace a crime reporter, Jim Holk, who left to California, I think, to try to become a screenwriter. So...
Did he make it?
No.
Okay, I didn't know. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't want to put him down in all this. I just wondered, hey, did he...
He was a fascinating guy. I've never met him, but I have followed him a bit since then. We connect through Facebook, because I thanked him for leaving and giving me a job. It was very nice of him.
Is he going to take your job now that you're retired?
You can come back now, Jamie. I'm done. Thanks.
Keep working. If you're listening, keep working at it. I believe in you.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was crime and police reporting from the beginning. And I did that. Actually, one of the great things about the Spectator is they let me do just about anything. I mean, I'll give you an example. So I was a crime reporter, and I did that and love it. I mean, I love, as I said before, I love finding things out that people don't want me to find out.
Yeah.
There's a competitive edge to me, and that's where it comes out. But I love every crime story is a powerful human story. And I love getting the opportunity to tell it in a way that people understand why they should pay attention to that story. But I'd done that for a couple of years, and then they asked me to take on some additional responsibilities as a weekend editor. And they wanted to beef up their Monday paper, so I had this new role where I'm doing more general reporting and also managing staff and designing the news that goes into the Monday paper. And then one time they said, listen, we need a weather story every Monday morning.
A weather story?
A weather story.
Not the weather forecast. Just...
No, it's to go above the weather map. This was back when newspapers ran weather maps.
Okay.
So full color weather map, half a page. And the editor said, I want a weather story, half page above that, with a big local weather photo. Okay, what do you want the story about? And he goes, give us something about the science of the weather. Why is it happening, and then tell people what they can expect this week, and make it understandable. And I'm like, okay, sure, yes, sir, boss. And of course, I forgot about it. And so Sunday comes around, and I'm busy managing all the other stories. And about 2:00 in the afternoon, I realize, holy crap, I have a half page to fill, and I haven't even assigned it to anyone. So I assigned it to some poor schmuck of a reporter, and they come back to me a while later and say, I can't reach any scientists on a Sunday. There's no experts I can talk to about the weather. And I was like, okay, great. Anyway, so I sat down once I finished my other duties, and I wrote it myself. And I didn't make things up, but I didn't interview anyone for it either.
I love the whole weather article just for no reason. But...
Well, so what ended up happening is I just started writing it because I actually had fun writing it. And I turned it into a column where the writers, in newspapers, you give writers columns where it's much about the writing and their voice, their personality and style as it is about the content. So I turned it into that without asking anyone's permission. I just started writing it like that. And I invented a character, a failed weather forecaster, scientist, a meteorologist, who'd been drummed out of Environment Canada because he insisted on using a natural weather science, like the wool on a hairy caterpillar and which side the moss was growing on, and things like that. So he gets drummed out of that, and now he's trying to make a living as a freelance forecaster. And it was so I wrote in his voice. And it became this, I always got the weather in somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So I met the criteria. But it became this creative writing class.
Nice.
And
they were okay with it.
And they were okay with it. In fact, they took it from the page on the back of the classifieds, and they moved it up to the front section on page 2.
What was the character's name?
He was just called the Weather Guy.
The Weather Guy.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I ever used his name. I don't think I ever did. It was all first person.
So regular Spectator readers may be familiar with that.
Yes, it ran for 4 years.
Yeah.
I did it for 4 years, once a week. I got some pretty regular fans. I mean, he had a love life, which was kind of, that was some of the fun I did was developing other characters and bringing them in. And there was a Margaret who was a waitress at a diner up in Flamborough.
I think everybody should have an alter ego.
Yes.
Isn't it fun to create
Absolutely.
something totally different? Like it's hard to explain, but you obviously did it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was saying about the Spectator. As a newspaper, I was able to create something. They look at it and say, "Hey, that's kind of good. Let's do it." rather than simply ordering me do this, do this, do this, do this.
And more interesting than just writing a story about the weather, you know.
Yes, you can only do that so many times.
Yeah, I know. Like,
so
a deep article about sleet just doesn't...
It doesn't go very far. So actually, when I was doing it for those 4 years, that was the high point of my week.
Started getting...
And just being able to sort of slip out of the hard news world that I was living in. And I would always go out for a walk and just look for some inspiration, some little, the sound of a bird. I remember once it was the silvery trail that snails leave when they, and I just saw that, and just that line triggered a whole day. So I was able to do that kind of thing. The Spectator, they're willing to take chances, and I don't know if people in Hamilton understand how much their paper does that compared to other papers which don't, and most do not.
And most stick to that's their agenda, and that's it.
Yeah.
Now, following the crime scene in Hamilton, one thing that bothers me is that Hamilton is seen as a very crime-filled... Being a reporter, do you think it's as dark and dank as other cities?
No, our violent crime rates have declined. During the time I've been here, they've declined significantly. Hamilton is pretty much a safe city. I hope people understand that.
You know what? You still hear people, like, from Burlington even and stuff going on about how, like, you can't be in downtown Hamilton and stuff.
And you know what that...
But I think that's everywhere. Like, if you're just at the wrong place at the wrong time...
Exactly. So most violence, that is what you're talking about, that people are afraid of, most is either domestic, so it's someone that you know that's close to you, or it's because you're involved in a particular criminal lifestyle where you're voluntarily, in a sense, associated with people who are violent, and you've moved yourself out of normal or polite or safe society in order to do those things. For people who don't do that, your chances of encountering random violence or any kind of violence are minimal.
Yeah.
I think what people are reacting to is poverty. And Hamilton wears its poverty.
Yeah.
We have the same poverty rate as Toronto. But when you go in downtown Toronto, you don't think of it as this incredibly poor place. And people who aren't in poverty become very uncomfortable when they're around people who are.
Right. And in Toronto, there's a lot more streets and stuff, and they're spread out. This sounds horrible, but, it's more isolated in the downtown area.
Toronto has segregated its poverty much more.
Right.
So Hamilton has not done that as much.
No. It's different poverty, too. Because I find that when I go to Toronto, they own... I don't know a nice way of putting this. It's going to sound wrong. But it's like their career. Like they're... Do you know what I mean? Like, they live out in the streets. They're not bothered by people.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen literally people sleeping in the streets. Like, they're not even bothered by people walking around. Where here, you see them and they're, panhandling and stuff. But they almost, like, I know it's all probably mental health issues with most of this. That's sad. Did you ever do a crime story what was, like, the biggest crime story that you did? Are you allowed to talk about that? Or?
Oh, well, I can talk about anything.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't work there anymore.
Yeah, I know. But was there any really big ones that really blown you away, or even, like, was so dark and twisted they were a little...
Yeah.
Putting you on the spot here.
I'm just actually, I'm trying to, rifle through the files quickly. Yeah. So there was the shooting death of Steve Messick, which happened just in 2013. Shot to death by 2 police officers. And he was a man who was mentally ill and was desperately trying to get himself better. He was a biker, but not a criminal in any sense of the word at all, ever. He liked motorcycles.
Just connected, like people just assume.
Yeah. And he was a bodybuilder. So he had a physicality that made people uneasy. But, again, no history of violence, everything I've learned about him, and I didn't know him while he was alive, is that he was a pretty sweet guy, focused on his body and healthy eating and healthy living. And he had a mental illness. He'd gone to, he tried to help himself. He checked himself in to the psychiatric emergency at St. Joe's. And they thought they were helping him, but they were not. He got worse. He checked himself out. He tried to commit suicide. He tried to jump in front of a bus, failed, went back to his house and was breaking into his house, his own house. We're not sure why, and there's different people have different theories. But anyway, when 2 police officers encountered him, no other witnesses other than those officers, and we had an inquest about it. But they ended up shooting him to death, saying that he came at them with a shovel. I found it was horrific that someone. I mean, we expect the police to help people, and that if I was suddenly kind of mentally ill and violent, you would call the police, maybe to help protect you, but also because you'd be concerned about myself and what I would do. Mm-hmm. And instead, and this has happened quite a lot, police, because of their training, and these aren't evil people at all, but their training, and they're very well trained, and they're much more trained than they used to be. That training tells them to kill. If they perceive a threat to themselves or others, they are to kill. They're taught to try other techniques and to go to that.
Sure.
But they're also taught that you don't take a chance. So I think that one really affected me deeply, that story. And I got to know his fiancée, who was carrying his unborn child at the time. And his parents, who are still just broken in two over this. That story of many I've done, and I've done, I think, 2,000 or so during the time I've been at the Spectator, affected me and made me realize that we really have to solve this problem. We should not be putting police officers in a position where they're killing people who need help. And we've got to find a way to train them so that that's not what they do.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that was a touching story.
Yeah, not a lot of comedy in it, though, I'm afraid.
No, but that's great. I don't like my show being funny. No, I don't mind when it goes this way. I like that. You've just, made me think about a lot, because it seems like all the time you're hearing people getting shot by the police, and there's always two sides to the story, but when there's not a lot of people there, it's just there is going to be a lot of questions and stuff like that.
And there should be.
So there should be, yeah.
I mean, we give the police a lot of power over us in exchange for them keeping us safe. I mean, that's the trade-off we make. And we do need civil order in society.
We do.
But we also need to keep a very close eye on them and make sure they're doing what we want, not just whatever they want.
Right. I apologize if you get this for being a newspaper man all the time.
Yeah.
And you probably do.
Are you going to complain about the comics?
No,
good. Okay.
No. I forget the comics are still there. I used to love the comics, and I once in a while, if I see a newspaper, I'll look for the comics, and I'll be like, good Lord, what happened to the days?
Well, that's unfortunate.
No, I was going to ask you about, do you think newspapers will still be around in time? Because they keep always telling us that, we're going to see magazines are going to slowly go, newspapers are going to go totally electronic. Do you, from being in a position of being, working in that industry, do you think it'll ever come to that point? Do you think the newer generation aren't going to have home delivery? Because I remember when my parents used to get the newspaper, it was a big deal. You'd get the newspaper, everybody would take the section they wanted. I was always comics and entertainment. My dad would take, news, and brothers taking the sports. But to me, it's very iconic. But now people, you can go on the line and get instantly.
Everybody
reading.
sits with their own phone and
yeah, I know. You're looking, and suddenly you get the news. Like there's been a hurricane. Do you think we're ever gonna see that?
When I started at the Spectator, the newsroom had, I think, 133 people.
Wow.
And as I leave it, it has about 70.
Wow. So almost like
that is close to in half. Over 18 years.
I was going to say half, but then I didn't do the math.
That's all right.
I was afraid that, he doesn't know what to add.
So, I mean, this is a reality that the industry is wrestling with. if you go back to the Industrial Revolution, I mean, this is a bit of a cliche, but it's true. I'm not sure people understood, the people who were working on a farm and decided that there's things happening in the city, so they should, instead of being a slave, in all but name, to a landowner and working their fields for them, that they're going to seek their fortune in the city. I don't think they understood that what was happening was a revolution that was just ripping society apart and remaking it in a new way. And that's what we're undergoing right now because of the digital world.
Yeah.
And it is doing that. It's ripping this world apart and reshaping it in ways in any sector that you can think of. And news is a very visible, common one, and so people are seeing it there, I think, more than they're noticing what it's doing to education or banking or insurance or medicine. All of those fields are being completely remade, slowly and against resistance, but inexorably. So, yeah, that newspaper's going to be gone. No question of it. No question at all.
What will we line our bird cages with?
That's true. We won't have birds. We'll have digital birds, and they won't poop. So you won't have to line the bird cage.
Like I like looking at magazines and stuff online, but there's something to be said about holding still the copy,
I know. And, horses were so nice to ride, weren't they? We've lost something now that we're all not riding our own horses. There was a bond between a man and his horse.
Yeah, I know. I fight change as I get older, but I know.
So do I.
I had a point with the horse thing.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should just climb back on my horse and ride off.
Sometimes I wish we'd go back to that, even though I couldn't ride a horse to.
What you were saying was that the rewards of reading physically with a magazine.
Right.
That's where you were.
Yeah, there's something about, I don't know, maybe I'm just very old school, and I know I am in my thinking. I can look at technology and see the pros, but I see the cons just as glaringly. I don't know. I think we just jump into it too much, but... Oh, I was going to say that this year they claimed that for the last couple of years, electronic books were becoming bigger. But this year, it went back to physical books on the rise again.
Yeah.
And so that gives me hope that we still might get a newspaper every once in a while.
Don't. Because it ain't going to happen. No, I think what's happened with e-books, as they're called, probably has more to do with the distribution systems, the difficult and distinct locks that everyone's put on their own version of books.
Okay, so it's just easier going in, buying a book, and getting out again.
Right? It works no matter, right? And they charge too much for them. They're charging, I mean, the price is down somewhat, but they're still charging as though they're delivering packaging and printing this big hunk of paper and getting it to you, instead of putting a lot of effort into creating something once and then just copying it with the push of a button. Copying it 1,000,000 times with the push of a button, where there's virtually no real cost associated with that. And I think that people say, well, I have to have the special reader, and I have to make sure I buy the special version that works with that reader, or I can't take one out from the library. I can, but it's really complicated and difficult. They're just going, it is much easier to read a book. And reading a book is a pleasant experience if you like reading. I love it. So I think this is temporary.
Okay.
I don't think it marks a swing.
So enjoy the newspaper as it lasts.
Yes.
And is there a place that you can actually see old articles of yours, or just in case people are interested now that you're retired?
Yes.
You can still go out and buy the Spectator, but he's just not going to be in it as much.
I recommend all your listeners go to the Hamilton Central Library and get it out on microfilm and search through it. Search through it on the microfilm viewer and just page through them. You'll find my stories there.
I love that there's a whole generation that's like, what? But mostly my listeners know what that is. Bill, we ran out of time. I could talk to you for hours. I have been talking to you for hours, even though it's being condensed to an hour. We've been together for a little bit now, so you'll have to definitely come back.
Thank you.
And we will. I'm sure we'll find lots to talk about.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And I will be back, and we will talk very soon.
Okay.